Hi everyone, can you hear me? Please raise up your hand if you can hear me. So I'm sure the audio is working. Awesome, awesome. All right. Thank you very much. So we have 2 minutes to get started. So we just kick off right at 15 hours. And at the moment, I will invite Jesrin to take us through the house rules. If there's anything that we need to know before we officially start the program. Jesrin?
Thank you, Francis. Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to today's webinar and the official launch of the RHINO Ethics version 4.0. I'd just like to lay down a few house rules before we start today's session. Please ensure that your mic is muted at all times to avoid any disruptions during the session. Our team is actively monitoring the chat, so please make use of the chat for any questions you may have. Sit back and relax. Enjoy the rest of today's session. That is it from my side, Francis.
Thank you very much, Jesrin. So sit back and relax. Make use of the chat room. If you have any question as the programs progresses, please make sure you post your questions on the chat. We may not have time for people to unmute themselves and ask questions, but we do hope that we will be able to cover as many questions as possible posted through the chat. Now, it is 15 hours, ladies and gentlemen, and now I want to take the opportunity to invite Dr. Retha Visak to come and do her official remarks as we start to begin the program officially. I think Retha is around, so please welcome. Thank you. All right.
I am around indeed, and thank you very much. And a hearty good afternoon to each and every one of you from Pretoria, South Africa. We gather today at a defining moment for the African clinical research ecosystem. Across our continent, we have witnessed remarkable growth in scientific leadership, regulatory maturity, and Africa's contribution to global clinical research. Our institutions across the continent are stronger, our researchers are more connected, our innovation capacity continues to expand. And yet, despite these advancements, ethics review processes across Africa remain fragmented and insufficiently harmonized. Structures differ, timelines vary, requirements are not always aligned, and the result is avoidable delays in research and innovation, and at times diminished confidence in ethics review systems. Today, in this webinar, we confront a pivotal question. What does it truly mean to establish a common platform for clinical trial review and regulatory approval across Africa? Is it about efficiency? Is it about standardization? Is it about shared accountability? Perhaps it is all of these and more. It is also about technological advancement. If we dare to articulate a collective aspiration, we might say we envision an Africa where ethics review is rigorous but not redundant, where regulatory approval is coordinated but not compromised, where innovation moves at the speed of need while integrity remains non-negotiable. We envision systems that speak to one another, committees that trust one another, and processes that inspire confidence, not only among our researchers and regulators, but among the communities we ultimately serve. This conversation today is especially timely as it coincides with the launch of the AI-powered RHINO Ethics version 4.0, an innovation that signals how digital tools and artificial intelligence can support harmonization, transparency, and strengthen governance across borders. Colleagues, we all know that we have to bring together our shared vision. And we have to bring together thought leaders to reflect deeply on what such a system should look like. We think about AI-empowered systems, the challenges that must be addressed, and the commitments required to make these solutions sustainable. So let today be more than a discussion. Let it be a step towards coherence, a step towards efficiency, and a step towards a research ecosystem that reflects Africa's ambition and Africa's integrity. Thank you to all of you for joining us, and I look forward to a rich and forward-thinking dialogue. To our esteemed moderator, Doris Wangari, and our esteemed panelists, Dr. Alan Mukwana, Prof. Paul Ndebele, Dr. Primus Chichi, Dr. Thomas Nierenda, and Prof. Kwazi Nyarku. Thank you for supporting EthiExpert in actualizing its dream towards a common ethics review system for Africa. Your experience and capabilities in clinical research ethics governance are vital to extend our discourse. Appreciative thanks to the Science for Africa Foundation, which was instrumental in funding EthiExpert's development of the first AI-informed online research ethics review system in Africa and probably globally. I also want to acknowledge the contribution of Mr. Vibeka Pai. Without your company's technological support, we would not have been able to realize the dream of an AI-powered ethics review system. And then lastly, thank you to the EthiExperts team led by Francis Combi and by our very competent COO, Corleen, and also then the rest of the team that organized this event and will make sure that it is run in a very orderly fashion. I now declare this webinar open with a lot of pride for what the team has achieved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Retha. Thank you very much for those powerful words. And without much ado, may I take the opportunity now to invite Doris, who will be moderating the next session, guiding us through the discussions that our panelists are going to engage us. Doris, if you can hear me, please.
Hi, hello, hi. You can hear me?
Hi.
You can
All
hear
right,
me?
over to you, Doris. Over to you.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Dr. Rita and Francis, for the kind words that you've said. And indeed, it is a pleasure to be a moderator for this webinar and the official launch of the RHINO Ethics 4.0 launch. So good afternoon and welcome, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to have distinguished colleagues, regulators, ethics committee members, various researchers, and even partners from across Africa and beyond joining us for this webinar. As you've heard, my name is Doris Wangari. I'm a senior program officer with the Science for Africa Foundation, where I work within the Grand Challenges Africa program. Our work essentially focuses on strengthening research governance in terms of innovations and participating in scaling the innovations through the pipeline after that to ensure that they reach the users that need them the most. As you've heard from the opening remarks that have been made, today we're exploring fundamental questions. What does a common platform for clinical trials ethics review and regulatory approval mean for Africa. When we look at Africa in terms of clinical research ecosystem, it is truly advancing rapidly, yet ethics remains fragmented, slow, and even across some countries looks very uneven. In 2020, during COVID, we realized that innovation can indeed move fast, and science did move very fast. And even so, ethics and regulatory approvals were made in very different speeds than what we are used to. This showed us two things. Indeed, through coordination, these timelines can indeed be surpassed. And also, a lack of a shared digital platform indeed continues to limit the trust and transparency when it comes to timely approvals. So for today, in our conversation, we are going to see what changes when our systems indeed become connected. But before I begin, I would like to urge that please engage us within the chat box throughout the session. Post your questions there. We will indeed try and capture them during the course of the discussion. I know that it has also been said that this session is being recorded after that. So ensure that to keep your questions to a bare minimum in terms of when you unmute to ask any questions. Additionally, you'll note that at the end of this session, we'll have a follow-up engagement session where we will have a deeper discussion to that. So we're going to ensure that all your voices are heard and indeed you're enriching conversations into this dialogue. So without further ado, allow me to introduce my own colleague, Alan Mukwana. She leads the programs here at Science for Africa, looking at strengthening the science ecosystem and research capacity, as well as policy and partnerships across Africa. Alan, are you here?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Doris.
You're well?
Yes, I'm well. Thank you.
Okay. So, Alan, when we look at the African continent as it is right now, there are a lot of delayed approvals when it comes to multi-country approvals. And this is really limiting Africa, especially when it comes to early participation in global trials. From a continental science and innovation perspective, what do you think is broken? And I use broken in a very loose term to understand. So what is broken in the African ethics review ecosystem today? And how can digital harmonization support this?
Thank you, Doris, and thank you to the organizers. I think today's discussion comes at a pivotal moment for Africa's research landscape, where the promise of scientific leadership is too often constrained by fragmented, paper-based and uncoordinated ethics review systems. And I think this has been alluded to by the previous speaker. And you can imagine with over 1,000 research ethics committees working in isolation, duplication, delays, and inconsistent standards continue to slow especially the multi-country trials. What that means is that it weakens competitiveness and undermines the public trust. So digital harmonized platforms represent not just a technological upgrade, but a fundamental shift towards transparency, efficiency, and continental collaboration, which is really an opportunity to transform how Africa reviews, approves, and oversees research in an era defined by genomics, AI, and rapid response public health science. So today, as we explore what is broken, to use your term, why harmonization matters and how the future of ethical governance must evolve to meet our scientific ambitions. I would like to respond to your question in three parts. One, what is broken? Why digitalize? Why it's essential for us to harmonize now and not later, and the cost of the delays to Africa. So when you look at broken or the structural and operational gaps, we have fragmented, non-interoperable ethics systems. All right. I did mention that Africa has approximately 1,000 research ethics committees, but very few operate with digital tools or even across REC visibility. You know, countries use different forms, SOPs, timelines, and data standards, making it very difficult to do multi-country trials because it's slow and very duplicative. I just wanted to single out the example of 2020, 2014, 2016 Ebola vaccine trials in West Africa, which required separate reviews in Guinea, in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, leading to months-long delays before harmonized processes were introduced. So some of these really speak to the challenges we are trying to surface during this webinar. The other challenge is the paper-based or email-based review, which slow down decision-making. Many of the national and institutional recs really still rely on paper submissions or emails. This is really a lack of structured, this is because of a lack of structured digital submissions or tracking systems. You know, we still use Excel spreadsheets to do our tracking, and this is 2026. We need to move away from that. The other challenge is really around misaligned alignment between ethics committees and national regulators, which really exacerbates the delays. These are often done, they often run in parallel and coordinated timelines, right? There are times when some of these approvals take up to anywhere between 3 and 9 months just to get your ethics approvals, reviews, and the regulatory approvals. And so this really highlights what our challenges are still. And then the limited capacity for timely review of complex trials. Specifically when you're looking at genomics, AI, data-intensive research, you know, specific, genomics and data sharing protocols, you require legal, ethical, and IT security expertise, which is not commonly available among our recs. And so this also creates a bottleneck. And that really speaks to what is broken. And Doris, if you allow me, I can quickly speak to why digital harmonization is essential now.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So for me, I think, one of the biggest advantage would be the multi-country trials. Because they are now the norm, not the exception. And so we quickly need to digitize so that in digitizing, we create harmonized systems across the continent so that different countries can do their reviews simultaneously and also, rely on other reviews because they are transparent. And then when you talk about digital systems, they really help us centralize applications, allow parallel review and facilitate research ethics committees and regulator information exchange. And I think that really is a major plus, why it is essential for us to now digitize. And then harmonization strengthens public trust. You did mention the public trust, and the previous speaker also did highlight the issue of public trust. I think we are losing public trust in science because of the lack of, or what seems to be the lack of transparency. So transparent review workflows reassure the public that ethics oversight is robust and coordinated. I mean, the example of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout, if you remember, we had public hesitancy that that was fueled by misinformation about the ethics of trials. But what we harmonize digital systems reduce such uncertainties. So I think it's to our advantage, and I want to point to just three key points why these delays are a cost to Africa, because one is the lost opportunities to participate early in global science. Delayed ethics approvals mean African sites miss the first wave participation in global trials and often join only later in later phases, right? Then the lost investment and weakening of scientific competitiveness. Sponsors avoid slow jurisdictions. Investments move to regions where they can predict timelines, areas like Southeast Asia. Yeah. There's a report from the Wellcome Trust that did an analysis that showed ethics delays were among the 3 barriers of running trials in Africa. I think this was done in 2020. And unfortunately, we're still experiencing the same challenges today. And then lastly, delayed access to life-saving interventions. I think we can all agree that Africa has the highest burden of outbreaks. And so for delays in approvals directly correlates with the increased morbidity and mortality. And so we need not just to build the public trust, but also to be cutting edge and participate in global science at a timely manner and not at a later phase. Yeah. Doris, I think I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alan, for the responses that you've given. Indeed, you have painted a picture about how our African ethics review ecosystem looks like today, and indeed what we are missing out on if we continue without digitalization and harmonization of these platforms. So allow me to invite our next panelist, Professor Kwasi, who I want us to unpack a bit more around this harmonization and joint reviews. Professor Kwasi coordinates the AVRF, which is the African Vaccine Regulatory Forum, a WHO platform advancing regulatory and ethics harmonization across Africa, and supporting joint clinical trials review. So AVRF has demonstrated the power of parallel and even joint reviews to that. But coordination still remains a resource-intensive affair without shared digital systems. So, Professor Kwasi, what happens, or how does it look like when the various regulatory ethics committees and the national regulators access real-time information at the same time? What inefficiencies are unlocked, and what would it take to develop similar tools specifically for ethics review?
Yes, thank you.
I think we've all been muted. You can unmute yourself again. Professor Kwasi? Please unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry, I was having problems unmuting.
Go ahead.
Yes. So first, I'm probably more of an evangelist than a professor. So bear that in mind. I'm not a professor yet, but I've been involved in joint reviews at the WHO AVAREF process, which was used or have been used successfully for Ebola, for Mpox, and other public health emergencies. And in this system, which is not for everything, we are able to really get reviews, multi-country reviews done in 60 days, which is what is recommended, or 30 days. And in emergencies, we are able to do it even within 15 days, which is the recommended. So for example, in a recent Mpox issue, the joint review was done in 20 days. But there is a lot of coordination here that makes it work. But to answer your question, in working with NRAs and ethics committees, there are various things that observations. The first observation is that there is a lot of duplication in the work that NRAs are doing as well as ethics committees are doing. And so if we want to enhance the timeline, this needs to be looked into. It looks like, so I'll just leave it at the coordination level. The other one is also the time you lose in whether you are doing it sequentially or in parallel. And I think if things are done in parallel, so WHO, we do optimization assessments, supporting member states, and we go into countries, we work with both the regulators and the ethics committees and the researchers and basically recommend how not only the timeliness, but the quality of the reviews can also be increased. And with that, we are able to see that if you are able to adopt a parallel review system, that is also able to help. Another issue that we have to really look at, not just what the digitization can do, but was also raised by the previous speaker. And that has a lot to do with the expertise that is required to, get the work done. And so for us to be effective, yes, there is shopping for regulators that are timely because clinical trials have to be done in timely manner, both ethics and regulatory reviews and everything. And so it is very important that digital tools like what we're talking about, these are tools, they are aids that are going to help. If the fundamental basis is not there, the capacity to actually do the review is not there, the tool probably is not going to do that much. And so we shouldn't keep our eyes just on the tools, but really also what it takes to do a good review. A lot has been said about harmonization. And I think some of the best practices that we have seen or that is being observed by other groups, there's a lot of work going on. We need to find ways in which we can actually gather these best practices, put them together, and really help others in adapting them so that things are not recreated. Ethics, the principles of ethics, we are all working towards using international ICH guide documents, international standards, international best practices. That's there, but we also, in most instances, I have to also overlay the African context in terms of what our cultural beliefs and religious and all that into it, as well as the financial situation. And so I think with this, we will be able to streamline and harmonize effectively with the tools that are being made available through digitization and AI and so on and so forth. But we have to be sure that the basis is there, that the reviewers have the basic training on being reviewers, and also we need a way to get best practices to spread. So I'll leave it at that stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that insight. And indeed, the publication and sharing of best practices to improve on our expertise is the point is well noted, Atta. Also noting that that through parallel joint reviews, remarkable steps have been taken in shortening the timelines for reviews as well. And a classic example there that you've given to us. So allow me to invite next panelist, Professor Paul Ndembele. And I want us to unpack about cross-system experience. We've heard about the experience within Africa as well. I'll invite you. Professor Ndembele is a research ethics leader with over 20 years experience working across Africa as well as in the US at George Washington University. In research ethics systems and advancing ethics governance, justice, and informed consent in global research. So Professor Ndembele, I want us to draw from both the US, the Western, as well as the African systems. What best practices in ethics governance should guide Africa as reviews become more digital and AI supported?
Thank you very much, Doris, and it's a pleasure being here. I think from the speakers that have already spoken before me, it is now clear that digitizing is actually aimed at improving efficiency. But we need to remember at all times that digitizing, and especially the use of artificial intelligence in ethics reviews, comes with lots of pros and cons. And if research ethics committees and drug regulators are not taking precautions, they can actually face serious risks that can actually result in serious damage. So here we need to emphasize that even as we look at digitized systems, as we look at the use of artificial intelligence in our systems, we should not rely entirely on these AI systems, as they are there to aid us in the work that we do in our research ethics committees. So we always want to emphasize on a human in the loop, to say that even as we have these systems, we want to ensure that as human beings, as members of research ethics committees, and as the drug regulators, the human side, we remain there. We want to ensure that the human beings remain in control of those systems and also the ethics reviews. And that way, it means we can take into account the issues that Kwasi mentioned, the issues of context. So when it comes to governance, we need to emphasize on responsible AI governance. What do I mean here? I'm going to emphasize on some important pillars that we need to aim for. We are looking here at having clear policies, SOPs, and also even accountability mechanisms. We are also looking here at risk management and controls to ensure that these systems are working to our advantage. We also want to emphasize on ethical and responsible use. We also want to emphasize on data governance and monitoring, noting that the data that we handle, even as regulators or as research ethics committees, belong to the researchers. We also want to emphasize on continuous oversight and monitoring of these systems so that we keep refining our practice, so that we also keep refining our systems. We also want to emphasize on capacity building so that at the end of the day, this becomes a common standard across Africa. But more importantly, I want to emphasize on the issue of ensuring stakeholder engagement so that our various stakeholders are aware of all these developments that are coming up. So at the end of it all, transparency. I'm going to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ndembele, for that. And indeed, reaffirming about the human in the loop aspect, I think that is very important, as well as the responsible use of AI to that. Very key points right there. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to also remind us that we do have a chat box where we can ask questions as we proceed. We are going to have a brief session where we will unpack those questions with our panelists. So please post your questions on the chat to that. As we continue, allow me now to then invite my next panelist, Dr. Thomas Nyirenda, and we'll be talking a bit more on this capacity and sustainability. So Dr. Thomas Nyirenda is a physician and a long-time leader when it comes to clinical trials and capacity strengthening, currently at the European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership, EDCTP, supporting ethics and regulatory systems across Africa. Dr. Nyirenda, you've been at the forefront of supporting capacity building investments on the continent. What bottlenecks continue to slow down ethics review, particularly between ethics committee and the regulators, as we've heard, and what enables sustainable adoption of harmonized digital platforms across the various diverse RECs?
Thanks very much, Doris. And I would like first to thank the organizers for inviting me to be part of this very important discussion. And you have asked me a very important but very tough question. But I will leverage on the previous speakers. But let me open by saying that EDCTP, as you have mentioned, is just one of the many funders that are trying to improve the African clinical trial ecosystem so that it is as robust as it should be in terms of developing interventions against the diseases that are maiming the communities and killing so many of our loved ones. And so capacity building in general is something that we have indeed invested in. And in general, when we look at capacity development, we look at mainly three facets. And this is in the form of one corner of the triangle, the institutes. Having strong institutes or centers is really important. And the other is the people within the institutes. And the third one is the systems that govern the work of those people to make those institutes very strong. And so when it comes to regulation and ethics oversight, it's not different. We have to look at those three entities to see how we can really strengthen the work that we want to strengthen. So to answer your question, it's not very difficult to, hearing from the previous speakers that some of the challenges of adoption of new interventions or new technologies has to do with either weak institutions or its weak systems or weakness in terms of the workforce or a combination of both. And this is where our EDCTP grants are kind of flexible. And some of the speakers have been coordinators of EDCTP grants, like Dr. Debeli. He can attest to that, that really you cannot pinpoint one thing as a blockage unless you really look carefully and look at holistically, that it has to be an issue that is complex. People, you can train as many as you want. They don't stay. They will leave the institutions behind. And the issue of systems then come in. My previous colleagues have talked about governance, which is part of the systems. Whoever is going to come, what system are they going to find? So this, I can summarize with the work we have done supporting the starting up of ethics committees where there are none in African countries, or strengthening those that are still around, that the major problems are at different levels depending on where you are in the continent. So in some countries, it would be difficult to adopt new tools because there's no people. There is actually a new committee just starting, and adoption of a digital technology is not their priority. Their priority is to start the committee, to start the NRA, to start the ethics committee. In some countries, they have people, but they are not trained and they're not capable, they're not confident to adopt new tools because that will just increase mistakes, and their appraisal at the end of the year will be tarnished because they have taken on something that is challenging. But also at the institutional level, institutions will say, we have trained people, but we also don't have enough funding. This is also where EDCTP comes in, because at the center of all those three facets I've talked about, there need to be enough resources to make things possible. And most of our institutes in sub-Saharan Africa are struggling financially. And I can say this confidently, especially among ethics committees, that most of them are still at voluntary basis. The NRAs, most of them are established by acts of parliament. They are government entities and they have employees, even if there's scanty number of employees, but at least there's someone there because it's a government-funded entity. But ethics committees funding is a big problem. So without funding, then we can even talk about good structures put in place and governance. So just to summarize what you asked me, I would say it's not one problem definitive that I can say is really a stumbling block. It's a systematic problem. And this is where in Africa, we really need to look at issues in isolation. And that is what is going to make a difference, so that each side or each country should be looked at its own. And what AVRF is doing to hold the hands of weak countries by combining with regulators or ethics experts from other countries is a very good strategy, because it looks at where we are coming from as Africa. We may not wait for the money to come, but there's a system where others can hold the hands of others to do things. So that takes me into the next part of your question of what can we do. I think we really have to have systems that have got good reliance systems. Alan talked about harmonization of those processes, which is very important. Professor Ndebele talked about not just systems, but relying on the humans behind it. We need to have training programs that speak to different countries in the continent. Not that East Africa has their own training programs, West Africa have their own training programs and training materials, because this is a background where we are coming from. At the end of the day, we are talking about multi-center, multi-country clinical trials. Then you find that you are subsumed in so many confusing processes in the name of doing ethics work. So I would stop there for now. I hope I have addressed some of the issues that are pertinent in your question, but happy to take on a little bit further from colleagues when they start asking questions in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nyirenda. And indeed, a tough question, but you've tackled it very well, trying to ensure that as much as there are isolated challenges, issues that are noticed, we need to also unpack them and see them in a bigger lens at that. And also the noting of the uneven regulatory capabilities across the countries that we have. Suffice to say that I have also served on voluntary basis as a reviewer myself, and I think that is another topic that we need to unpack in terms of how to motivate reviewers to participate in review processes. Allow me to move to our next panelist. And here we're going to tackle around the safety, the oversight, especially when it comes to public health. I'll be inviting Dr. Primus Chechi, who is a bioethicist and a health systems researcher working at the Africa CDC on research ethics, governance, and emerging technologies across Africa. So from a public health and regulatory oversight perspective, how have the delays in ethics approvals affected, especially when we have an outbreak on an emergency response case? And how does this link to ethics review from the regulators if we were to have digital systems that would improve participant safety?
Yeah, thank you, Doris, for your question. Again, to thank the organizers for the opportunity to be part of this important conversation. At the African CDC, we are really keen on improving the R&D and clinical trial ecosystem on the continent, because we do recognize that as a continent where there are the incidence of diseases of epidemic potential is quite high. We really have to ensure that we do research and we do it well. And again, touching the issue of patient safety is really important to highlight why this is really is a key thing, because if you need to have trust from the public, from the community, if you need to get research participants to be part of the studies that you do, you need to ensure that they are safe. So that is really why I will say patient safety is really foundational to ethical clinical research. So if there's no safety, then we really can't move on with research. And with that background, it's now important to understand that within the regulatory space, ethics review, regulatory review, these are complementary processes that have been put in place to actually ensure patient safety. While we are moving towards developing evidence that will be useful for the continent to address our pressing needs, we also make sure that we ensure that there's safety. For example, like in the ethics review processes, risk-benefit analysis is really critical. And again, leveraging on what the earlier colleagues have mentioned, the ethics committee is really critical to ensure that any research that is being conducted on in a country or even at the level of the continent, it should undergo proper review, where studies that are perceived to have unreasonable risk should not go on, and only those that have that the risk benefit assessment is positive, that's when you can allow them to go on. And once you have such systems, that's how you gain public trust, and more people will be able to avail themselves to take part in research. Even issues around informed consent as well, where as a researcher, you ensure that any potential research participant is able understands why they are taking part in the study. They understand the purpose, the goal of the study, what will entail them taking part in that study, and again, the right they have to withdraw from the study at any time without any being penalized. Yeah, so all those contribute to ensuring that there's safety, not just on paper, but also there is that perception that there's safety, and in fact, those who are taking part in the study, they feel they are safe. Looking on the regulatory side, even again, most of the regulatory reviews, they pay attention a lot on the scientific validity. And with that, they look at issues of again of statistics. Are we having the right in terms of sample size? We don't want people to take part in studies that will provide findings that are not useful for the population. So, in a nutshell, if we look at what the ethics and the regulatory review does, they are quite complementary. And within these processes, we actually see that patient safety is really uh, important at every stage. Even when studies have been approved, there's still ongoing reviews, there's still ongoing processes where there are adverse events, PIs are required to report that back to the ethics committee, and that may even affect the risk benefit evaluation of such studies. You see. Yeah, so that's what I would say about issues around patient the importance of ethics and regulatory reviews with respect to patient safety. Then when we look at the issue of delayed reviews, the impact, I think Alan really captured it quite well in her opening statements. Again, delayed reviews, what that basically means is that you are delaying the evidence generation. And if you don't have the quality evidence, what that means is that those who need that evidence, that's the community, the population will not have that outcome. If it's a product, for example, let's say it's a vaccine or a medication, what that means is that people are there is a delay in assessing that important product, and it may lead to loss of lives, it may lead to disabilities and many other things. So again, why we are saying that it's really important to have systems that are timely, we should also ensure that they are rigorous in the way they are being done so that at the end of the day, we are safeguarding the well-being of the participants, the well-being of our populations as well. I will pause for now and also happy to take more questions later.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Primas, for that intervention, and indeed showcasing the aspects of and the importance of ensuring and taking accountability when it comes to participant or patient safety to that. So we've done a round of questions for each of you, and I see we are already at the top of the time. So I wanted to just do a quick rapid round to each one of you, 30 seconds each, if you will. And the question that I have for you, when we look forward into the future, let's say in 3 years or 5 years after that, but based on the rate at which technology is going, let's work with 3 years. If digital ethics platforms were to be widely adopted across Africa, what does success look like for you? And I'll start with you, Alan.
So, Doris, that's really difficult. 3 years, you do understand that the African continent is huge. And we have different legal frameworks in different countries, different capacities. But anyway, one can dream. And I think using or utilizing the regional blocks to especially harmonize on the legal frameworks in the different regions, I think we can have joint digital ethics and regulatory reviews, and really leverage the different human capacities across those regional blocks. I think, in my mind, that's what comes as a short, not very short term, but really medium term. As I say, different capacities, and I think it's been mentioned by the different speakers, the aspect of not all the countries have the same problems. But yeah, I think joint digital ethics and regulatory reviews would be one of the things that we can look forward to. Then, importantly, AI-assisted pre-screening for completeness and consistency, at least the basics, and from that we have, public dashboards for transparency. So that's what I see. You said 1 minute, I've taken more than that, but yeah, I think success it's not completely out of our reach. It's just that it may not be the 3 years we're speaking to, but definitely we can start the movement.
Indeed,
Yeah.
and thank you for engaging me in the dream, Antoine. And then Dr. Kwasi, as you as well, in 3 years, if the digital ethics platforms were to be widely adopted across Africa, what does success look like for you? 30 seconds.
Yes, for me, success would look like, because all this is about increasing access to medicines that we need for the continent. And for our researchers and our clinical trialists to be actually helping us secure this access, for things to be pragmatic and sustainable, and really for us to look at relying on each other, having more reliance networks, whether it's the NRAs, whether it's the expertise within the organizations. And as Tom said, really looking at this from an ecosystem approach, looking at the systems, looking at the people, and so on, so that really we are able to ultimately get the outputs that we want. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Professor Ndembele, what does success look like for you?
Thank you very much. So in my dream, I see fewer trees being chopped down. Right now, lots of paper is being used in these submissions to research ethics committees. So fewer trees being chopped down as a result of these ethics reviews. So that's the first part of my dream. The second one is actually a decrease in IRB shopping or hopping. Right now, some researchers actually know that there are weak IRBs in some countries, so they go there. But once we have standardized processes, it means less of this IRB hopping or shopping. That's my dream. 3 years.
Great, great. And building on climate change as well, supporting climate change with the trees. Dr. Thomas Nyirenda, what does success look like for you?
For me, success will be as simple as having as many scientists not complaining about delays in ethics reviews. Or no complaints at all. If we have 0 complaints, I'll be very happy with those challenges. But having said that, I know some of us, we don't know what AI is at my age now. They can't even catch up. But if they can develop a minimum package that any simple NRA or IRB can adopt without challenges, anything complex they want to build on top of that, it's their business. But a minimum package that can speak to all of us, that we have a harmonized system, I think that would be great. Then we can link it to our clinical trial registers and everywhere where this data that we want to get. That to me will be really good success. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And lastly, Dr. Primus, what does success look like for you?
Yeah, thanks again, Doris. I think just to echo again, I think what Kwasi mentioned. I think it's about the people and the community, because again, what's the value of the research? Is to provide health products that ensure the well-being of the people of the continent, the populations of the continent. So I hope that with this, we will see more efficient and faster reviews that will allow more an improvement of the overall around the eco system. And again, I want to see, I hope with this, we will see more democratization of ethics review, where there will be more equity across the continent, like the areas that are weak, the regions that are weak, they will be able to be easily strengthened by those that are stronger. Then overall, we will have more efficiency and even a more robust R&D ecosystem as far as ethics and regulatory reviews are concerned on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this moderated high-level panel. You'll agree with me that indeed we did have the right expertise and the right mix for our discussions. Today, we have heard that indeed ethics review reform is ultimately about trust, about time, about transparency, as well as about safety. These digital platforms do not replace ethical judgment. Indeed, they are enablers of coordination, of consistency, of accountability, and even enablers of high quality review and timely reviews. Thank you to all our panelists as well as to our speakers. Please stay with us as we continue in the next engagement session that follows after that. Thank you. Over.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doris. I feel so empowered personally about the conversation that was going on. It feels like after this, we need to have a declaration of what is next for Africa. It's so powerful. The engagement has been very, very deep and powerful. And I really want to appreciate the engagement by the panelists and, the dialogue that has been initiated thus far. Now, without much ado, please allow us now to move to the next session, which is the launch of the RHINO Ethics version 4.0. And to start us off, I'm going to invite Loreto, who is going to give a very brief 5-minute overview of what we are talking about when we are talking about RHINO ethics. And then after that, we are going to move one step at a time to do live demos of what are these new functionalities that have been developed in the RHINO ethics platform. As we do that, please continue posting your questions, but also try to reflect on what this platform is providing and what this conversation has been talking about in terms of what are the areas that we need to be focusing on as we move towards the digital era. So let me now invite Loreto, please, if you may give a very brief overview of what we mean by RHINO ethics. Can you hear me?
Thank you so much, Francis. Yes, I can. Thank you so much. And my name is Larato Sihlangu, currently working at FEXpect as an assistant project officer, and I'll be giving you an overview on the RHINO ethics version 4.0. So like Alan had mentioned, this is the picture that she was referring to, I assume, that many research ethics committees still operate in environments heavily reliant on paper-based systems. In some offices, large volumes of printed applications continue to accumulate because of submissions are received in hard copies. And these applications must be processed and reviewed manually, which place a significant administrative burden on the research ethics committee staff. And this reliance on physical documentation often contributes to operations disruptions, including delayed reviews and extended turnaround times. Logistics challenges such as printing, courier services, physical storages, file tracking, and document circulation among reviewers further compound inefficiencies in the ethics review processes. And this also leads to negative implications on the research, innovation, and development. So, and maybe this is why we might be here today to introduce the RHINO Ethics Platform. Now, RHINO Ethics Platform, it is an abbreviation of Research and Health Innovation Organizer, and it is a cloud-based platform enabling RECs to deliver better quality, more efficient, accelerated, and standardized ethical review of research for global health. It is tailored for challenges experienced in Africa, such as your low internet bandwidth, constant power outages, and maintenance cost. It is also a fully fledged information management and ethics review system, including real-time information sharing, notifications, tracking, and archiving of documents and protocols. So we have different versions and languages. Sorry, we have 3 languages, which is English, French, and Portuguese. And we also have the national and institutional packages. So for the professional package, we have RECs that review clinical trials. And for the basic package, it is for the RECs that do not review clinical trials. So What are the solutions that we are offering? The RHINO Ethics version new functionalities are the following. The AI-powered ethics review, which introduces an AI-powered RHINO ethics platform to support human reviewers summarize voluminous documents, synthesize ethical issues, and suggest ethical decisions for reviewers to consider. Secondly, the dynamic NREC dashboard, which is a linking and end-to-end sharing of all information between institutional REC and NRECs to allow for monitoring of REC activities by the NR and generation of real-time reports. Thirdly, the REC or NREC and NRA integration, which is linking and end-to-end sharing of information between the REC and NRECs that review clinical trials and the national regulatory authorities to allow for real-time sharing of information about clinical trials under review. And lastly, the prepaid financing model, introducing an online payment paywall to allow for RECs to access RHINO Ethics for free, and EthiExpect to charge submission fees directly from researchers. Now, allow me to also say that Baibeka will be taking us through the demonstration of this in the following section. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that standardizing ethics review in Africa has implications for expediting research and innovation and saving lives. Now, EthiExpect is to ensure every REC in Africa starts using a digital platform by 2030. And our call for action would be that for you to tell a friend or a colleague to tell a friend or a colleague about the RHINO ethics. Together, we can make Africa's research ecosystem safer and trustworthy. And yes, we believe that we can. Now, this brings me to the last slide. And thank you so much. Over to you, Francis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Loreto, for that overview. And I'm not going to talk much about this. I think our time, we are still on time. So I will now take us through the step-by-step live demo of what we have developed on the RHINO Ethics platform. Loreto has already mentioned this, but now we want to see live. What exactly is it? When we talk about the AI-enabled platform, what exactly does it do? We have had a few areas of concern, including the human part or the oversight of the human reviewer when you are using AI. How have we been able to integrate this? We have heard about the importance of sharing of information, using parallel review between the ethics committees and the review, the regulatory review. How are we addressing this in the new functionalities? So without much ado, let me now invite Baibeka, who will now take us through the first functionality, which is the AI-enabled review.
Hello. Thank you, Francis. I will share my screen and let me know once you're able to view my screen. So we'll continue on that. Francis, just confirm whether you are able to see my screen.
It's still coming. Yes, now I can see.
Okay. So I am logged in as an administrator. So the admin. So here you will see the tab AI model where you can say set to AI model. There is a model running behind the screen in the server. So this particular application will be sent for the review by this AI model. Let me do this one. So this process will post all the information starting from the applications, the documents, and the applicant's response to this to the AI model. So the AI model take its time. It will say expected completion of the time. This it will give, and all this it will create three things: summary of creation, application response validations, review response generation. I will show you already processed one application. This application has already been processed by the AI model. So here it shows you all the AI responses. This is the document summary. You can summarize the document. The applicant answers, whether it can verified or not verified, it will specify, and generate reviewer response. So these are the questions for the reviewer. So AI, by going through the application, the documents, and all the information, generate this kind of responses. For questions have the personal name and title, investigation have been provided. So the AI response is like this. So yes, it got this, and whatever it has been find out from the document, it will be given over here. So these are the response. But how it will be get used? So I will show you by logging in as a reviewer. While reviewing the reviewer, for each questions, there is one AI response. They will be able to see the AI response. Okay, they can accept it or they can edit the response. So we are taking the input if they are editing this response, and that will be another input to the model for further improvement. So for like here, comment on team's qualification. So before writing, so this is the response generated by the AI. So they can either edit or they can directly accept. If they say accept, so the same thing will be over to the this one. If they feel that this answer by the AI is correct one, they can directly accept it. Otherwise, they can edit it and accept it. So this way, it will help the reviewers fetching out of the content from the application. Francis, that's all on this one.
I was hoping finally you would show the final recommendation for where.
So based on this response, the model recommend this. So it can say major revision required. The study cannot comment. The researcher should substantially review the proposal and resubmit it for full review by the RHINO.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Becca. And so there you have it. That's the first live demo showing you what we have done to integrate AI on a already existing online review system. And at this point, I want to acknowledge Science for Africa Foundation for giving us seed funding to develop this AI, which we tested with a few committees, and now it is ready for scaling up. As you saw, like advised by the panelists, we have ensured that the AI has a human oversight built into it so that the AI does not suggest and make the final decision. It only makes suggestions which are then relayed to the human reviewer. The human reviewer has the power to edit, reject, or accept the recommendations, and only when they accept these recommendations then become part of the review, which is then submitted to the administrator for the final, discussion before this is then relayed as the final decision or the final approval in the review process. Now, next, we are going to look at the dynamic National Research Ethics Committee dashboard, which is integrated or built to have an end-to-end sharing of information between institutional review boards or institutional review committees and the National Ethics Committee. This is an attempt to ensure that, because a lot of the national ethics committees now are required to oversight institutional ethics committees, we have built in a dashboard to enable institutional research ethics committees to be able to already share the necessary information on the National Ethics Committee dashboard so that the monitoring becomes easy. And hopefully this is also going to enhance pharmacovigilance in terms of being able to know what clinical trials are being reviewed or approved by the different institutional review boards and what reports are being submitted. So welcome, Becca.
So I have logged into the NREC instance. So in the NREC, it will be able to view all the institutions, institutional RECs under this particular NREC. They can select any NREC and they can view those by months or by year. Let's say this February 2026. So it will show the number of applications submitted application, reviewed application, approved application or rejected. This is by the application status or by application types. Okay. So applicant type, sorry. So undergraduate, postgraduate, local researcher or the external researcher. Research type, those are clinical trials, social behavior or health system, clinical trial status, risk level, and disease. So from here, they can get the details of this thing. If they click on this, so it will show the applications, the application number, the title, and who is the principal investigator. Okay, they can do the filter in this screen as well. Basically, submitted, reviewed, approved, rejected, all they can do different type of filterings. And the second thing, so if they need more information about any particular application, so they can send a message to the IREC admin. So here, so they can add a query on this particular application. For example, so when in the IREC dashboard, okay. So,
So what Becca is trying to demonstrate is that in addition to the ability to monitor, all the reports, including applications, status of the applications, status of clinical trials, and so forth, as you saw, there is now a functionality to allow the National Research Ethics Committee to communicate directly with individual IRECs. So assuming you are the National Ethics Committee of a country, it is expected that you have numerous or many institutional ethics committees in that particular country. And if there's any application that you want to follow up directly, you can send that query. And as you can see there on the IREX dashboard, that information is sent directly to the administrator, and it is linked to that particular application. So you don't have to worry about what is this query about. It is directly linked to that particular application. Therefore, all the information is easy to audit, and the audit trail is easy to follow from scratch to the end.
That's right. So this is the application we have sent the message for this one. So here in the action on IREC, they will get the this thing, need more information. They can reply it. They can attach any document for this one and reply to this message. So that will get reflected on the NREC site.
Thank you. And then, so we are moving on. The next one is, and this is very, very exciting for me. The next one is the integration of the Research Ethics Committee or National Research Ethics Committee, especially those that review clinical trials, and the National Regulatory Authority. So picture a situation in a country where you have research ethics committees that review clinical trials and the National Regulatory Authority. We have now integrated their dashboard and the workflows to address the issue that has been raised by the panelists regarding parallel submission or sequential submission. So we are going to see which model has been integrated on the platform, and then we are going to ask questions if we have any questions. Becca.
Yeah. So now I logged in as an applicant to an NREC. So here is my application. So at the end, when I am submitting this application, when I say submit, it will say me, want to submit for NRA? The applicant say yes or no. So if they say no, they can submit it in the letter stage as well. So let me do it yes. Okay. So my application got submitted. So in NRA, let me log into the NRA. Okay. This is the application right now I submitted. So we'll see. This is pilot study of the reflow and system, clinical study. So now it is pending review the review has been not done for this particular application at the NREC site. So they can view the details of this application checklist, but they cannot do the review. So review assignment is not allowed until NREC's approved final decision is shared. So as the final decision from NREC is not shared, so NRA cannot start the review process over here. So once the NRA okay, in NREC, let me submit one application final review so that we can see whether it let me do the set final decision. Okay, this is approved. Okay, the final, now it will also again ask final decision submitted successfully. Do you agree to share the final decision certificate and additional comment sent to the PI with the NRA? If I'll say yes, share, this decision will be shared with the NRA. And this one, long ultrasound one. So I replace this. Okay. Now they can download the certificate shared by the NREC and view it. And now this one, they start the review. They can assign the reviewer. For this particular application, they can add reviewers and start the review process. And at this side, so here the status will be external review, NRA technical review going on. Okay. Once the NRA is approved, so it will be seen like that, approved by NRA and NREC. So here they can download the certificate shared by NRA as well.
And the two can communicate, by Becca?
Yeah, yes. That's right. Here they can send the messages similar to the communication between IREC and NRA. Here they can select one, the application, and here they add the query. So they can ask for more information, more document, whatever it is. So they can send a new query.
All right. So as Becca does that, I think you can reflect on the talk by the panelists, and you can already see some, even though this is going to bring some improvement, there's a bottleneck because these workflows have been developed within the context of the existing legal framework. At the moment, most of the countries in Africa do not have parallel reviews between for clinical trials. You only have sequential review, where review has to be done by the ethics committee, upon which, when the final decision has been made, then the national regulatory authority can begin the review. What we have done is to enhance that so that the submission is done to both the ethics committee and the regulatory authority, but while the ethics committee is doing the review, the regulatory authority can do what we call the administrative review. They can look at the documents, they can request for additional information, but they cannot do the review because that is what the law says in most parts of the continent. So what we are getting here is the discussion about the legal framework is critical, because up until when that is in place, then this platform can be adjusted accordingly so that either parallel reviews can happen without necessarily waiting for the ethics committee to finalize their review before the regulatory authority can begin. But as it is, while we are trying to bridge that gap, it's not efficient because of the legal frameworks that exist. All right, but you have seen now how that happens. We have integrated the ethics committee's dashboard with the regulatory authority dashboard and streamlined the workflows. Not perfectly, but at least that is how that is how far we could get in terms of also adhering to the legal frameworks. Now, the final demo that we are going to have before we open up this to the general discussion is now the prepaid model of financing. For a long time, have had discussions, and I want to now to acknowledge the support that we have received from EDSTP, both from EDSTP1, EDSTP2, and now EDSTP3 in developing this platform to where it is now. One of the challenges has been sustaining the use of the platform, because the platform can only be efficient if it continues to get the necessary support. What has happened is that we have relied on initial seed funding from EDSTP, but then later on, once the project comes to an end, a lot of the research ethics committees cannot be able to sustain the payment of the annual subscription fee. What the prepaid financing model does is then to say, we understand that a lot of the research ethics committees are not able to, do not have a source of income. So what we are trying to do is to meet in between. We have developed a model where instead of relying on the research ethics committees to pay the annual subscription fee, we are going to negotiate and discuss with the research ethics committee so that instead we can charge a very modest fee to the researchers who are submitting to them, so that they continue using the platform while a very modest fee is charged to the researchers who submit. And that way we can basically make it a reality that as many research ethics committees as possible in the continent can have the platform without worrying about sustainability. So welcome, Becca.
Yep. So the application has logged in as an applicant, and this is my application. So before submitting the application, it will ask me to pay the fee. So here, make the payment. The first step will make the payment, then I can submit it. So while making the payment, we integrate it with the Flutter web. So this is the dummy one. So you can see. Now it will show you have completed the payment for this application. Now I can submit it for the review. Yeah, Francis.
All right, and that hopefully will address the issue about inability to service the annual subscription fee. This is something that can be customized. You can choose whatever model you want. If you still want to pay the annual subscription fee, that will still be active. But in the event that an ethics committee is not able to pay the annual subscription fee, they can have the platform for free, but then we have to enter into an agreement what is reasonable to charge their researchers, and we can have different charges for students, for local PIs, external PIs, and so forth and so forth. So this is a conversation that we are still going to have with committees that will be interested in now moving from the analog system to the digital system when they do not have enough resources to support themselves. And with that, I know there are so many questions that we have to address, and I want to now to hand over to Doris again. There are so many questions here that we will be addressing. I'm not sure we have the time, but I think we have about 25 minutes or so to, no, 20 minutes to address the questions, and then we hand over to Colleen, who will do the final wrap-up. Doris, over to you.
Thank you very much, Francis, for that, and also for the live demo. Indeed, there are several questions that have come in through the chat after that, and some of them I'm trying to group them into the areas that they're trying to address. So I want to add you, Francis, to the panelists that we have. So as well, because some of the questions that have come forth are particularly for the RHINO platform that the members want to understand. So one of the questions that came through was when it comes to confidentiality and data privacy or protection of the information. So one of the question was, how is confidentiality ensured and data sharing as well as proprietary information protected within AI reviews? And within that, they were asking around this confidentiality of the platform in terms of information. There's confidentiality of private information, and there's even confidentiality when it comes to AI So I can start with you, Francis, on this.
Thank you, Doris. I will ask Rebecca to chip in with regards to confidentiality of the AI. What we did, this was a critical question during the pilot phase of the platform. People were concerned about confidentiality of the research proposals. In research, data is a current of research, and people were wondering about how we are going to do that. What we did was to ensure that our AI is running in a controlled, safe environment. So whatever protocols that we run through the AI, this data is not going to be available in the public domain. It's not like the way you run the ordinary AI, and then maybe when you do turn it in, you realize that you get a report that this protocol is already available in this particular space. So we are running everything in a safe environment to ensure that no data leaves this safe, controlled environment. In terms of now the confidentiality of researchers, so one of the things that we are going to institute, because this is not live yet, what we are going to do is we have already, as part of the pilot phase, we already engaged the national ethics committees to understand what is the information that you usually seek from researchers, so that we do not collect any different information that is already not sought by the National Ethics Committee. But even with that, you will see that on the dashboard, we capture very limited information so that when the National Ethics Committee requires additional information, they have to seek it from the Institutional Review Committee, and therefore it is the Institutional Review Committee that then gives permission for them to share this information. I want to believe the institutional review boards and any ethics committee for that matter will have been, will have a data protection, kind of policy within their institution that allows them to process data and sometimes to share, some, classified data to, these kind of regulators like the National Ethics Committee or the National Regulatory Authority. And that is why at every step, you realize that the platform is asking you to give permission. If you say no, then that data will not be shared. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. There was a follow-up question in terms of trying to understand the platform and the interoperability of it. So would all the reviews be done on the platform? I think that's a quick yes or no answer, since you've seen from the demo.
Ideally, as we move towards the digital, ethics review, all the review should be done within the platform. The platform has been made to basically be at 360 in terms of you receive protocols, you do the internal reviews, you process the applications, you email through the platform, you communicate, you issue electronically signed certificates through the platform. So everything can basically be done through the platform. So there is no reason why you can't operate within the platform, unless, of course, you have other reasons. Sometimes during the transition, we get committees that are saying we will have two parallel systems until everyone is conversant with the system, then we can come in.
Okay. And then the last one for you, how was this model trained and has the system been validated?
I think I'm talking a lot. Let me allow Becca to also say something.
Okay, I'll give you some brief about this AI model. This is, we have taken the open model of Llama 3.2. So we trained that model from the past data from the ethics committees who has agreed to share their information for the training purpose, and we just validate that model, and we hosted that model within our server itself. So we are not sending data outside from our server. And moreover, the data, whatever be there in terms of your application, all this data, we prepare embedded, vector embeddings. So not the plain text, we are passing it to the LLM model as well. So all the data from the instance of any REC, it will be embedded through a vector translation, and those data is fed to the model. And second, okay. And next question, what other question is there?
So it was how you've validated the platform.
Can I come in? So the platform, after the design and the workflows of the platform, we had already existing data in the online review system, which then we used as historical data to train the model. After that, we had a stakeholder forum where we ran through the outputs of the model. People, interrogated the outputs and, gave other additional, comments and suggestions, which then the technical team went to work on this. And then finally, the final, version was produced, which was then validated again, and the retraining continues up to date. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll note that we also had a few questions for our panelists afterward. So I also wanted to invite you to engage with us directly. So if I could be able to see by raising of your hand, if you have a burning question for the next few minutes, we can accept a few of those. Raise your hand, we'll ask you to unmute, let us know to whom you're asking the question to, and then we can get an intervention to that. But as I'm looking at the chat, I noted there was one question that was actually directed to Africa CDC. So to you, Dr. Primus. So the question was, they would like to hear about the involvement of Africa CDC, who also have an ethics and regulatory working group together with member states.
Yeah, thanks, Doris, for that. Yeah, indeed, the African CDC, we do have an ethics working group that we've been engaging with for the past couple of years to develop important ethics and regulatory documents for the continent. And one of the things, we are looking forward to is the creation of a continental ethics committee that will also help to link the African CDC with national ethics committees, and this will be very useful for multi-country trials. And in alignment with what Francis and team they have been discussing, we think an e-submission platform like RHINO might be quite helpful. That we don't just link IRCs with the next, is if we can also do that linkage also at the continental level, especially for multi-country trials, that will also be very helpful. So that group will serve as one of our go-to think tanks where we can draw on expertise for review and ethics advice for multi-country protocols that are submitted through us and involving member states within the African Union. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I want to invite Dr. Ndembele as well. There's a question here, and you did allude to it, and you are the one who actually started us off in the aspect of ensuring that we have the human in the loop. So the question is, what are the key safeguards to ensure AI enhanced efficiency without compromising the ethical quality and contextual judgment that human reviewers provide?
Thank you very much for that interesting question. So I think as we were watching the demo, we actually saw that AI actually was presenting some recommendation. But the important thing is for the member who has been assigned the reviewer to be considering that recommendation. But at the end of it all, the recommendation should be coming from the reviewer, and then the decision coming from the ethics committee, and not from the AI system. The AI system is simply doing a summary to help us in terms of looking at this protocol that we are reviewing. But at the end of the day, we are going to consider our context as the reviewers, the individual reviewers, and then also as a committee, and also coming up with our own decision. And as I've mentioned, it's very, very important that the systems be kept under review at all times, so that if there are any issues that we feel are not working well, we actually take steps to address those issues. So at the end of the day, it actually means the ethics committees and also even the technical team remains available all the time. Thank you.
Thank you for that intervention. Francis, I want to come back to you. I'm still looking at the chat and I don't see any hands that are raised. There was a quick question here in terms of what is the annual fee for RHINO, which I know you've mentioned about the cost aspect, but it would be good to also emphasize it once more.
Thank you, Doris. So we want to move away from the annual subscription fee. That is why we're proposing a new model. And but the current one, before this comes into force, is it's split into two. So there is the basic version, which Loreto talked about. That is for committees that do not review clinical trials. That used to be $2,500. And the one for the national ethics committees, and professional version, which is for committees that review clinical trials, used to be 3,500. But hopefully with this new one, we are going to now get that out of the shoulders of the ethics committees and begin to charge a fee. And I see a question there. Does that mean that the RECs will not now receive a fee? No, that does not mean so. The review fee will still remain. So when you are submitting your mandatory documents, you'll be required to also attach proof of payment for the review fee, but then that is different from the submission fee. So we are going to split that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. I want to allow, at least we have one or two participants that have joined us today to ask their questions directly to that. So if you are ready, you can unmute and ask your question. Just let us know to who the question is directed to add that. Any burning questions from the audience? Please just unmute and ask. Okay. Guess there are no banning. We continue with the chat, as it were. There's a question here specifically for South Africa. Has this been approved in South Africa? I think that's for you, Francis. And Rebecca.
Is that the question? Has NHREC approved the AI platform?
Yes.
So at the moment, the AI, well, I don't know what that means, but we haven't had any approval so far. As I said, we just went through the pilot phase. We are now ready to scale up. And that basically means wherever we are going to deploy this, we will have to look at the legal requirements and then have to basically align to those legal requirements. As I said, every country within the continent has different legal requirements. Even for just charging a fee for the researchers, now we realize, based on the conversations that we had, the stakeholder engagement that we had before developing this functionality, we actually realized that in other countries, you are not just allowed to go and start charging a fee to researchers. You have to make sure that, because there's no framework for that, even the ethics committees are not allowed to charge a fee from researchers. So this will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, depending on where committees want to have it. So if we get committees in South Africa that want to have the AI, because this is customized based on the requirement of the committee. If we have committees that require the AI-enabled functionality, we will have to look at the legal framework, the requirements, and we'll have to comply with that.
Okay, thank you for that intervention. And I see I have Moses. Your hand is raised. You can unmute and ask your question. I was coming to your two questions as well, but if you can just unmute.
Chesney, you need to unmute Moses.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I was struggling with unmuting, and thanks for allowing me. Good evening, everyone. This is Moses from Africa CDC. Yeah, thanks for the innovation with the development. Mine is specifically to the LLM or the model that is currently being used. I would need to know whether, because from the discussions and the presentation, this model is being developed and trained using the data that is being collected here in Africa. So I don't know whether you have intellectual property over that model, because with AI models, if you don't own the model can be used elsewhere using your training, and it is used to it is used as a monetary tool. So I don't know if RHINO has IP over that model, and if that model is solely for the African context. Thank you.
Moses, you're raising a very pertinent issue. And I've opened discussions about this previously. Late last year in Uganda, there was a team that was, during the RHIMA conference, there was a team that was, presenting and discussing about intellectual property rights. I raised the question, and the response I got was, it's very complicated to get intellectual property rights for this kind of a software. But then we started the conversation, and I do hope that if there's anyone in the audience who is an expert in this, please email me or drop me a text. But it's something that we are very much keen to do, because we understand how fast technology is moving, and you are very right about the need to think about getting IPR for the software. Thank you.
As you can see, Francis, a lot of the questions were actually post the RHINO platform more so. And I think it's an exciting and interesting presentation and demo that we've seen that raises very genuine questions add to that in terms of how to appreciate it. There's a last question here that I would want to also allocate to you. And it's just come in, it says, does this mean that each protocol will be charged while submitting?
Well, as I said, we have to deal with this on a case-by-case basis. The current model is designed to do that. Every submission is charged. We can make it as modest as possible, depending on the profile of the committee and the researchers who submit to that particular committee. But we are not going to have a generic, model that will say this is the amount. We hope that we will engage at an individual rec level, try to understand the context, and adapt the model based on their context.
And I think that really truly comes back to the panel discussion of addressing the uneven scenarios that we have across the various institutions, individuals, as well as countries to that. Is there I want to do a last round of invitation for any burning question. If there is no, Francis, I would want then to hand it over back to you. Oh, they have come double. Okay, we can start with you, Dr. Moodley. How are you? Can unmute.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So thank you, Doris, for the session and for all the presentations. I think innovation is always important on the continent, but I think we have lots of challenges to face where AI and REC review is concerned. So one of the important principles in this field is explainability. So what is not clear is how Llama 3.2 was used to develop this AI tool. I think that's a really basic question. And if we can get a full understanding of that, then it will improve, everyone's understanding of the ethics around this tool. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll pass that to Vibeka.
Yep. So basic requirement of this particular application was to validate the documents, summarize the document, and to generate the answer for the reviewer questions. So we validate all the models which are available, open source model, because we make it a closed, we are not, we are using it offline within the our environment. So we are validating all the models which are available. So this was one of the best fit with on our evaluation we find. So that's the reason we select the Llama one.
Okay, thank you for that, Vibeka. Paul, your hand is up. Peter, your hand is up. You can ask your question. Keep it short.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for an exciting presentation. Mine is just to clarify the issue of integration of the digital platforms between the REC and the NRAs. And I just wanted to know whether this applies across different digital platforms. For example, the REC could be having the RHINO platform while the NRA is having a different model. Like for us in Kenya, our NRA has got a different model from the RHINO that we use at the REC. Is this integration gonna be just across board, or are there any differences in this? And if not, then is that a possibility given the platform that and the new version that you've already presented? Thank you.
Okay.
So I think to answer that question directly, I would say we at the moment we have been very kind of selfish, if you want, so that we want to. That is why we call our system a platform. So the idea is to make sure as many committees as possible are using the platform. But the platform is built on a modern, computer language, which it doesn't limit, what kind of system can be linked with our system. So linking is possible, but we have to look at it on a case by case and be able to know what data does your system capture and what will be then be, we just need to understand the workflows first before we can give a direct answer to say, yes, it is possible, or no, it is not possible.
Okay. So Francis, I hand it back over to you for the wrap up. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your indulgence during this Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doris. And before I hand over to Colleen, let me first say thank you so much for moderating this session. It's been a pleasure. It's been mind-blowing to me. It's been very informative, and I can't thank you enough. And also a big thank you to the panelists. Colleen, if you can hear me, please, you may proceed.
Thank you, Francis. I'm ready. Good afternoon, colleagues. It was so interesting listening to you. And yeah, thank you so much for investing your time in this afternoon session. I really think it was time well invested and that you learned a lot. Colleagues, distinguished panelists, partners, and friends, as we come to the end of this important discussion, at this end of this day, I would like to begin by thanking each of our speakers, our contributors, for the depth, honesty, and vision you've brought to today's conversation. What we have heard is not simply a discussion about software, nor only about regulation. It has been a discussion about trust, efficiency, collaboration, and ultimately about strengthening Africa's clinical research ecosystem. We began by acknowledging a reality many of us experience daily. Despite significant progress across the continent, ethics review systems remain fragmented. Processes differ from country to country, sometimes even within countries. Communication between institutional research ethics committees, national research ethics committees, and medical regulatory authorities is often manual, siloed, and time-consuming. These inefficiencies do not only delay protocols, they delay access to innovation, delay public health responses, and at times weaken confidence in the system. Our panel challenged us today to think beyond the question of whether we need harmonization and instead to ask what it truly means to have a common platform for ethics review and regulatory approval in Africa. The launch of the AI-powered RHINO Ethics version 4 today represents an important step in that direction. Through the demonstrations, we have seen how digitalization can streamline communication between research ethics committees and medical regulatory authorities, enable real-time tracking and reporting, support consistency in review through AI-assisted tools, while always keeping human expertise at the center, facilitate end-to-end pharmacovigilance, reporting from institutional research ethics committees to national research ethics committees. We also saw how it can provide sustainable financing models that lower barriers to participation. Importantly, the message has been clear. Technology is not here to replace ethics reviewers. It is here to support them, to reduce administrative burdens, enhance quality, and allow experts to focus on what matters most, protecting research participants and strengthening ethical integrity. Today's open discussion also reminded us that regional and continental integration is no longer aspirational. It is necessary. If Africa is to lead in clinical trials, vaccine development, genomics, and health innovation, our review systems must be as agile and interconnected as the science we seek to enable. But platforms alone will not create harmonization. Harmonization requires political will, institutional commitment, capacity strengthening, trust between regulators, and a shared vision that collaboration strengthens rather than diminishes national systems. The question before us is therefore not simply, can we build a common platform? The real question is, are we ready to work together differently? The conversation suggests that we are. We have expertise on this continent. We have regulatory leadership. We have an ethics scholarship. We have digital innovation. What we need and what today represents is alignment. As we close, I would encourage each participant to consider what role can you play in advancing a more coordinated, transparent, and efficient ethics review ecosystem in Africa. Whether you present a research ethics committee, a medical regulatory authority, a sponsor, an academic institution, or a regional body, the responsibility is shared. Let today not be the end of a webinar, but be the beginning of deeper collaboration and the beginning of a new era for RHINO Ethics version 4. On behalf of Expert, I would thank our moderator, Doris. I think you did a sterling job. Thank you. Thank you to our distinguished panelists, the RHINO Ethics team, and every participant who joined and contributed to this important milestone. Together, we move towards a common ethics review system for Africa, not for the sake of systems alone, but for the researchers we support, the innovations we enable, and most importantly, the communities we serve. Thank you for your time, your engagement, and your commitment. We look forward to continuing this journey with you. And also thank you so much to my colleagues for the effort you've put in to make today a success. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Colleen. Thank you for those very wise words and words of inspiration. Thank you, colleagues, for coming. And hopefully we take this forward. As Colleen said, we continue engaging. We are here. Please share your views, share your advice, and most importantly, let's work together towards a common goal. Thank you.
Thank you and bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Nice one, guys. Well done. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good morning. Good
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Good morning.
There is for
Bye.
subject.